Welcome to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken. Shep will talk with some of the smartest thinkers in business to help make you more successful in your professional and personal life. This is Amazing Business Radio with Shep Hyken.
Hello, everybody. It's Shep Hyken here. We're back with another episode of Amazing Business Radio. We have a great show today. We are going to be talking with John Durocher, the Chief Customer Officer at Calix. Now, what is Calix? What does Calix do? Well, they are a provider of services to other internet broadband service providers. For example, you may think of AT&T and Comcast and these big internet service providers. Well, if you get into rural areas or smaller parts of the country, you'll have smaller companies. And Calix helps those companies be more successful for those customers. So we're going to be talking about that and a whole lot more. Before we get into the interview, quick announcement. If you've got an amazing story that you want to share or a question that you want to ask, reach out to me on any of the social media platforms because I am pretty much everywhere. If it is a question, please use the hashtag AskShep. And I will answer the question right there in the social channel on this show, or perhaps in my newsletter, the Shepherd Letter. And if you don't have a subscription to that, it's free, doesn't cost anything. Please go to www.hyken.com, sign up for a free subscription, and you will also get my annual customer service and experience research. All right, let's jump into our interview with John Durocher. John, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Shep. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited to be here because and by the way, everybody listening, how do I meet some amazing guests? Is that occasionally an agency will say, hey, I've got a client that you should put on your show. And most of them I go, I don't know. But this was really interesting because Chief Customer Officer of Calix. And who is Calix? We'll talk about them in just a moment. But here's the point. For our audience out there, everybody has an internet provider, broadband provider, what do you know, cable TV provider. Every one of you has this. Well, John's company, Calix, this is what they do. They provide all the back end and support services, hardware, software for all of what we would refer to as the non-major providers. The maybe you're in a rural area, smaller market. John, how am I doing? Is that pretty accurate?
Spot on. Spot on.
Anything you want to add to it?
No, I think that's it. I mean, we just help these small businesses run their business.
Yep. And by the way, and I had the opportunity to attend the conference that you have every year with your clients, like a users group, if you will. And I'm surprised just how small some of those rural markets are. Like, what would be the smallest broadband provider for some of your clients?
I mean, some of these, in terms of the number of employees, maybe 50 employees, 70 employees, right? A couple thousand, thousands of subscribers. Not millions, not hundreds of thousands.
Right. I mean, you compare it to AT&T or Comcast or one of those who are probably in the millions even.
Millions, for sure. Yes.
Right. And this company's out there in rural Missouri going, I'm happy with my 2,000 people that are within the, 25-mile
Well,
radius.
many of them are cooperatives. They formed because no one would come to their area.
Yeah.
So they started in electrical or power, and then they extended it to broadband.
Yeah, which is great. And that in itself is a positive customer experience because I remember back in the day when it's like, oh gosh, I can't get cable. I can't get, internet. My signal's not strong enough. And if you think about what Netflix did years ago, as they were transitioning to streaming, they made available, you can still get DVDs sent to your home because you don't have a strong enough signal to stream everything.
That's right.
Yep. So, well, why don't we start with what your responsibility is over at Calix?
All right, great. So I own everything that happens after the sale. So if you think about it, if you have a problem, you're going to call our support team. We have a success team, which is really focused on helping our customers get up and running and then really continue to transform their business. Services organization. So when we go and give you a new piece of software, help you implement that as well. So, anything that happens after the sale, I'm ensuring that is a good experience for our customers.
Great. So that's from the customer viewpoint. Let's dive into the middle of your company, inside your company. As the Chief Customer Officer, do you still, I mean, how separated are you from sales and marketing, or are you
Oh,
integrated in really tightly?
very, very well integrated. Very,
Mm.
because it's one experience. This is one of the mindsets that when I joined Calix. You can join Calix 2 years ago. I came over from Salesforce, where I ran very similar functions. And it's really important that you don't have these gaps in the experience, meaning our sales teams are talking to our customers. So they're expecting us as a company to know what they said, right? So our teams after the sale, we are tightly coupled, passing that information off, really working as one team, if you will.
Mm. In Calix, is there a CXO, a chief experience officer, or are you pretty much that?
I'm kind of filling that role with
Right,
our
with the
leadership
chief
team.
customer officer. Yep.
Yeah, I'm bringing that thought process. Is what is that experience going to be like for our customer? How do we think about that? How do we think about when we have an issue and it's going to impact our customers? Am I communicating that proactively, getting out there so that they know what's happening? What they're trying to run their business, and we're a backbone of that business. They need to have confidence that they know what's happening.
Yep. Yep. Very interesting. Yeah, I can get into the whole idea of the CXO. Does the question I was posed recently is, does the CMO report to the CXO, or do they sit side by side? Do they fight with each other? You know?
Right,
Oh,
right.
yeah.
We're a pretty tight team, and at the leadership level, and we meet a lot on what I would say is customer, approach. And so it's a fairly integrated from product. We do really well at customer listening. So we have many advisory boards. So that's our intake, and here is this. How is this product landing? But it's not just about the product. I'm bringing about how is the experience, right? You've got the product, you're getting our services or our support. What is that experience like? So we're really listening and trying to tune that across all of the departments, if you will.
All right. So you just mentioned advisory boards, and you have several of those, and you're really good at listening. You're referring to customer advisory boards,
That's
I'm
correct.
assuming.
Yes.
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 So this is a powerful thing for any company, regardless of the size, is to bring together a group of customers so that you can listen and hear from them what their experiences are, what they may be seeing out there that your competitors are coming to them with. I mean, it's a very powerful place if you've got an advocate that is willing to share their feedback and give you, hence the word advisory, give you advisory services on how you can improve.
Oh, some of our best ideas were not our ideas. Customer called us up and said, "You guys should think about doing this. I have this need. I'm trying to use your product this way. Have you thought about this?" And
Hmm.
that's amazing, right? When we can say that's a great idea. We hadn't thought about that, because customers are going to use your product in ways that you could never imagine, right? You may not intended that use.
Yeah.
And the closer you can get to them on the ideation, you can actually land that product to work a lot better for them.
So I know this is, by the way, we are so off script right now, which I love. We'll get
I'm
back
good
on
with it.
in a minute. But you just said we've gone from a customer advisory board, meaning more of a formal approach, to if a customer calls up and shares information, that is in a sense getting feedback from your
Mhm.
customer, from an individual customer. Do you on a regular basis survey your customers? And again,
Yes.
even though you're in the business of supporting, basically internet, cable, TV type providers, that's your customer. The consumer is their customer. And actually, you probably do a lot of thinking related to the consumer so that your direct customer, so
Right.
it's B to C to C.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. But let's talk about your surveys for a moment. Uh, you just said we listen. How, and this is something I've been writing about recently more than usual. How many times does a company, now I'm not referring to you, send out
Right.
a survey, gets feedback from a customer, and never tells the customer thank you, never acknowledges they received the survey, never says, oh, we're doing something with it? Sounds to me like, now I realize B2B, it's much easier because you've probably got a much smaller customer base than
Right.
some major retailer that might have, hundreds of thousands, if not
Hundreds of
millions of
millions
customers.
of customers. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
different story. You can't call them all back at that scale.
But you can automate a response that says
Mhm.
thank you for at least acknowledging.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's part of our process when we, we've been thinking about making sure that we don't survey too often. This is what we're worried about, where we get survey fatigue, where we're reaching out and saying, what about this? What about this? And so we're really trying to be smart about how often we ask and what we're asking about, because, it's a burden for the customer to continue to get asked these questions. So we've been worried about the frequency and trying to dial that into the appropriate level. But when we do get a survey back, good, bad, or indifferent, we ask them if they want to call. We ask them if, we certainly thank them. And then we ask them if they wanted a discussion. And anybody that's been giving us something less than a stellar feedback, we'll actually proactively call them to really better understand and dial into that. If a customer has a bad experience, why, right? Because they're trusting us to deliver a service and be good at what we do. And somehow we're not meeting their expectations. So we should understand what's happening there.
So important. I just recently fill out a survey. Been doing business with this company probably about 5-6 years. Even during COVID, it was interesting. And they send out a survey a couple of times a year, maybe even 3 times a year. It's always short. It's a quantitative on a scale of 1 to 10, 0 to 10, 1 to 5, whatever. And then why did you give us this? And it's really interesting that they ask, and there might be 2 of those questions, but the survey might take 2 minutes at the most. So I'm happy to do it also because I'm a happy customer. I had a bad experience with them. And I said to my wife, boy, I never, ever get companies to send me surveys after a bad experience. They only send it to me after a good experience. Well, lo and behold, high and behind, I received the survey right after this bad experience. And I said, I'm going to give them on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm giving them a 4. And then I'm going to explain. What I said is, I love you guys, but this time I had a bad experience. And the only reason I bring this up is I'm going to keep using and working with you. But if I was a first-time customer, I would probably not come back to you. And here's why. And then there was a third question. Can we reach out to you about this? All right. So it's been 2 months. No acknowledgement, even though I gave them all the information to reach out to me. And this is, we believe that this is, there's no doubt about it. In our annual consumer research, 72% of customers said they don't hear back from a company after completing a survey. And 71% assume they're not going to make any changes based on the feedback that they share, which is why more and more you're seeing people not filling out surveys.
That's disappointing because there's a signal there. They would have had all of your other surveys and your scores, and they could have said, hey, there's an anomaly. Shep, who usually has a very favorable response, has sent us a signal that it's not. We should absolutely respond back to that, right? I mean,
one would think.
I've been using this one car service for 30 years, and I use their service is generally great. Well, one time they got it wrong, and they send a survey after every ride, 0 to 5, just send it back. I gave them a 1, and I never give them a 1. I got a phone call immediately. They said, Mr. Durocher, what happened? And I said, well, this is what happened. It was, I don't know exactly what happened, but they didn't show up at the right place in the right time. And they took me the wrong address, even though I confirmed the address. And they were super apologetic, but I really appreciated they understood. They listened to me. They asked me my opinion. They listened and called me back. Like you said, closing that loop is every bit. If you don't close the loop, I'm not sure you should be doing the survey.
Yeah, 100%. So, hey, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, one of the things we're going to talk about is, in your words, how to execute the optimal customer experience. We are talking with John Durocher, who is the Chief Customer Office at Calix. I said officer at Calix. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Shep Hyken here with an offer that won't cost you a cent. You may have heard me talk about my annual customer service and experience research. We've surveyed thousands of customers matching the U.S. Census for age, gender, ethnicity, and geography, and we find out what customers love, hate, and want in a customer experience. What's the number one customer experience that almost every customer desires? What makes them come back? What makes them leave? Why won't they fill out surveys? What do they think of AI? Well, these questions and more are answered in the research, which, by the way, is sponsored this year by RingCentral, a leader in global communications. You can download the full report by going to hyken.com and clicking on the research tab at the top. Like I said, it won't cost you a cent, but it may make you or save you thousands and thousands of dollars when you understand your customers' expectations. Again, the website is www.hyken.com.
You're listening to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken.
We are back on Amazing Business Radio. We're talking with John Durocher, the Chief Customer Officer at Calix. And I'm fascinated because I think I may have misspoke earlier. I might have said B to C to C. I meant B to B to C. We at Calix service businesses who are the internet broadband providers for consumers in rural markets. So I'll restate that to make it perfectly clear. So with that in mind, John, we've got a lot to talk about. Any thoughts before we move into executing the optimal customer experience?
Well, what I would say is in this industry in general, broadband providers, I think we all know that they are not known for being customer experience providers, right? They have pretty low scores in that area, right?
Well, and let me just say that I think there's a reason for that. And it's not that they aren't providing great service. First of all, there is I guess, a history of I need to get cable in my home. And they go, okay, take a day off work and wait for a guy to show up. Okay. And that's just, that's old history, but it takes a while to get rid of that. On top of that, when do I find out that my cable isn't working? When I've invited all my friends over to watch the football game and I turned on, oh my gosh, and it's working 99% of the time, maybe 99 point whatever percent of the time. But that one time it's not. So that's why I think you guys, I shouldn't say you guys, but the industry sometimes gets beat up a little bit because there's old history there that's no longer really valid. And then when things are happening, they're happening in real time and they can be bad.
Right. Most definitely.
So you were saying before
well, let's take that example. I think one of the things that our customers do that we help them do is notifications. We're going to have maintenance. We're going, or a notification that we're currently in an outage, right? And you'll get a text message that says we're in an outage. We know you're not having service right now. You're trying to watch this big football game, and we're actually providing you details about what's happening, how long that will be out, right? Taking away the uncertainty that do they even know it's not working? And then when will we be back? Answering that question of when will we be back online? Many of our customers are proactively doing that, which I think is a very important step in providing that just basic level of service.
Nothing makes me happier than to know that you're proactively handling something that I might not have even known was happening. And then you inform me what's going on and you fix it. And that's wonderful. I have worked with some of the major companies in the industry, and I won't tell you their name, but their initials are Comcast. Oh gosh, but no, seriously. One of the things that I learned from them is that they collect every possible way of communicating with the customer, not just telephone, internet, email, text, Facebook,
right.
every possible social channel. And then when there's a problem, they just, for lack of a better term, they just, I don't know, throw it out there and they like bomb the whole marketplace in a good way with,
right.
Hey, I don't know what you're able to see at this time, but here you are.
Absolutely. Hitting every available spot where your customers may be living, right? Whether that's on their phone or whether it's in a social media channel. Yeah, our customers are doing that well. I think that's the best practice, is to make sure that you're communicating not just in one way, but in the ways that your customer wants to receive that information.
Right. And to this point, when there's a problem and you're resolving it, this is far different than a marketing message. Customers love this kind of communication. Amazon sends an email once you place the order, then once it's out for delivery, then once it's actually been delivered. That's 3 emails. People love that. And what you're telling me, people like to get emails? Not always. They like to get emails about information that applies to them.
Yes, they like to be informed. Yeah. And they like to either, one, they always give you that link. Tell me can I go look where it is? Or are you going to just give me like the big updates, right? I think that's great. I mean, the best one is the Domino pizza tracker. Using that, analogy, right? People just want to know, where am I in this process? I would love for insurance companies to pick that one up.
Right. And if you think about your story about the driver that you used for 30 years.
Yeah.
Okay. today, and if you do Uber, Lyft, or one of the others, it's like you can see where the driver is. You can see them driving down the street toward you. So
Right.
you see quite a bit. Hey, while we're at the break, you mentioned how some of your customers, these providers, really take it a step beyond what a typical provider might do, even in a major market, and create, I would call it a more personalized or localized service. If you can share, I in a chapter of one of my books, Amaze Every Customer Every Time, I talked about doing local well. Understand, and by the way, a major company who has an international presence can still do local very well, but they have to learn from the people that do local well, which are the local companies.
Well, one of the companies, different example than we talked about at break, but you say it this way. They were spending a certain amount of money on a billboard, and they said that billboard, people drive by it, but that's really just one message. It's very static. What happens instead if, and what I would say is cellular service is not great in their area. What happens if we lit up 7 football fields so that when mom and dad are there and they're trying to, send, their, the grandmother, the score update, that they have access. And so they lit up Smart Town around their town so that their subscribers can now be connected, whether they're in the home or they're moving around the town as part of that service, which is
Wow.
powerful.
Yeah.
And so, that's part of the service. So they're saying, hey, when you get our service, you're not connected just in your home. You're connected in the places you live and travel to, and if you're out doing recreation activities, we're going to keep you connected all the time. I think
Very
that's
cool.
another good example. The other one is taking that idea of, like, people expect fast, reliable, secure, taking that security one more step. And through us, they're offering Bark and Arlo cameras, and that just gives them peace of mind, right? Of being able to help monitor their teens, what's going on online, and sending them notifications so they don't have to, have their passwords and be looking at their phones, their children's phones all the time. I think it's another level of service that they're providing.
So you're basically saying, as part of the customer experience, we want to be more than what you just think we're known for.
Yeah.
And we can offer extended services that stay in the lane of what you do, but you don't necessarily think it. But it's like, I look at it, especially in the B2B world, but even in the B2C world, is the customer using you, the company that's providing the service, for everything that you can offer them, that they can benefit from? In years and years ago, I read the greatest little financial report on Coca-Cola. And they came out with their annual report and stock, and they talked about market share. They compete against Pepsi and maybe some other companies, and they recognize they can only get so much market share. It's been kind of stagnant, and they go back and forth a few percentage points here and there, which, by the way, is worth millions and millions of dollars in revenue, but it doesn't sway like, oh, we're gaining, now we have 90% market share. That hasn't happened. But what they realized is, let's go after something else. Let's go after body share. And what that means is how much of a Coca-Cola product is in the human body, or going into the human body versus other things. So they started to expand to waters, soft drinks, or juices, and other products that would go into the body. And they said, now we're going after body share, which I thought was kind of a cool idea. So what other services can a company, and in our case here, Calix's customers are the broadband companies, service providers, what can we offer them that is in alignment with us, that people say, you know what, I already trust this company to do this. Let's see how they do with something else.
Right. And one of the things that we've been working on a lot of these customers with is around how they actually position their services. People don't really understand internet speed, truly, right? It's a number, and if it gets to a certain amount, you don't know if it's like, is that incrementally better? Or is it astronomically better? They don't know. What we said is you really have to position it to their, values that they care about. So parents, gamers, think about work at home, the business problem that they're trying to solve, and then package these solutions around that. And people really understand that, connect with that better than 1 gig at $9.99 a month, or $49 a month. Like, what does that mean, right?
Yep.
I don't. That's not really a service, right? That I can understand. So we actually help them position it in a way that the consumer can connect with it and understand that actually they can actually do things like wasn't even expecting, which is, I think, amazing.
To put it into another way, like let's talk about another major brand like Nike. Nike sells shoes. Oh yeah, I buy shoes. Well, what do you need shoes for? I play soccer or European football. Some people internationally, what is soccer? Okay, it's football. And I go, okay, I don't really need basketball shoes. I need soccer shoes, and you're going to provide me what I need when I need it, the way I want it. Love it. All right, we're basically running out of time, and I normally ask the one thing question. I want the one thing to focus on executing the optimal customer experience. If you wouldn't mind doing that, John, we'd love to hear insights from you as the Chief Customer Officer at Calix.
Well, I think, one of the things is, like you said, these are local providers. So they are connecting with their communities in ways that are fantastic. I'll tell you about one program. They created this senior to senior program. So they worked with the local high schools and found seniors in high school who were technology savvy and connected them with seniors in the community that needed technical help in terms of using their computer or navigating the internet. So they created this whole education program around senior to senior because they knew that was good for the community. And I think that's really the experience they're trying to create. Is that something that's very difficult to do as a big provider of being that local presence?
Yeah. You know what I love about that is companies today need to be behind something, not just a cause, but how can they get into the community? And you've taken a strength, which is you're a technology company, more or less, and you said, hey, let's play off of what we know to do best and see what we can do to add to the community. I love that. And that's part of creating the optimal experience. It's not just the products and solutions and whatever that you provide. It's giving people a really good feeling about doing business with you and a reason to keep doing business with you.
That's that emotional connection is critically important. If you give me one other second, you heard about all those hurricanes that were happening down in the South. Everybody lost service, right? Power and service. And so one of the first things one of our customers did was set up a smart town network. That was the first thing they did because they knew they couldn't get to every house, right? But if they could light up the community in a way that people had Wi-Fi access, they could let their loved ones know I'm safe, or I need to get a hold of my insurance company. Now I can connect with them because phone and internet, everything was out. And so that was the first thing they did. And they that was not just a, benefit to the community, but their employees, right? Because their employees were in the same boat as the community members.
So I want to make sure I understand and by the way, floods and hurricanes and everything happen all the time, every year. This year, unfortunately, has been pretty tough, but you went into or your customers went into a town and set up basically a hotspot throughout different hotspots throughout. So me as a homeowner or a business owner where nobody knows what's going on in my life because all they see is this devastating rhetoric on the news stations about what's going on. I get to one of these hotspots and I can now connect via Wi-Fi and let people know I'm alive and kicking. I'm going home in a little while to go back to bed. Don't worry about me.
Right. 1,000 access points around the community.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It was amazing, right? And amazing, just people gave them peace of mind. I can get out, I can call, I can contact people, I can call for help. All of those things were now possible.
Wow. It's amazing as I think about what you guys do and what people just don't realize what's happening behind the scenes in your industry. But even better than that is you've shared with us some great lessons and stories that we can relate to. So, John, thanks for being on our show today.
Great to be on. Thanks, Shep.
All right. What a great episode. What a great interview. And I promise you next week we will do it again. So until that time, come back and remember to always be amazing.